Hello and welcome to the SCOUTCAST. My name is Joe.
My name is Seb.
My name is Ted.
Welcome everyone. Seb, what is coming up on the show?
Well, Everton are top of the next 4-season ticker, so we're going to have a little look at them and see who we should be targeting after the loss to, or the draw, I should say. Felt like a loss. Draw with Leicester last night. Dean was playing on the left wing, so is he in contention? Maybe some other attacking defenders can be looked at as well. And we have Ted with us, of course, who is going to bring a load of interesting graphics, which, frankly, if you don't mind me saying, I think are possibly some of the best on the scene. So I'm going to shut up for half an hour. We, of course, will catch up with how we're doing in our game week so far. It's nearly over, although we do have the match on here, so excuse us if we shout. We'll frisk the fixtures coming up after that. Ted will pick a differential after, I think we've gone pretty well recently, apart from Matty Cash. And we will, of course, reveal our transfer plans and captaincy plans for the weekend.
Indeed, yes. There's a small matter of Spurs taking on Liverpool tonight. I definitely need some points, as we'll see in a moment. So I'm hoping for some goals or assists from Kane, Salah and Mane. There was an offside goal just before we came on air. We all got very excited. We all thought Son points, Kane points, but alas, offside. So we move on. So how are we doing so far? Ted, you can go first. You've got 62 points. And for the benefit of those listening on the podcast, you've got Martinez in goal. Cancelo, 17 points. Chilwell, Dallas, and then Gundogan, or Gundogan as I should say. I was reminded last week. Rafinha on 13 points. Fernandes captain, 4 points. Son playing tonight. Salah playing tonight. So could be more points coming. Antonio and Bamford, and a grand total of 4 points on your bench. So well done on your bench. Better than me and Seb this week. So yeah, 62 points minus 4, so 58 in total so far. More to come, hopefully. You must be pretty delighted with that.
Yeah, pretty delighted after a pretty poor double game week. So happy to bounce back a little bit. The two transfers I made were KDB and Balbuena out for Cancelo and Gundogan. So really decent transfers, netted me a huge amount of points. Right timing. I've really suffered without the City defence in the past. It seems so popular to double up or even triple up. So getting Cancelo in at the right time and for him to get his long-awaited attacking returns was great news. Great news. Rafinha at 13 points was another bit of a hero, which is he really impressed against Newcastle.
He's the right Leeds attacker to have at the moment, it seems.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to discuss Bamford at some point, aren't we? So we'll come to that later. But yeah, Fernandes, I think we all pretty much captained Fernandes. He was a very, very highly owned captain this week. And if you weren't original, if you wanted to just cover the effective ownership, then it punished us all because he wasn't the right captaincy option. So there we go.
Well, I went for him because I just thought he was going to get the most points out of everyone I had. But it wasn't to be.
It just shows how important effective ownership is, how much of an influence it is. Because if you've got an original thought about who you want to captain, someone interesting, someone different. If you know about effective ownership, it's enough to drag you back in and go, you're going to really get punished if you don't call it right this week.
I will say there was an interesting discussion on Twitter around this sort of subject. And I think I said I like to be boring with my captain always. By boring, I don't mean effective ownership. I think that's kind of a red herring a lot of the time. Effective ownership only really matters if your players score the same number of points. Now, of course, we don't know they're going to score the same points. So yeah, we predict and we take that into our calculations with risk. But realistically, if you've got a standout option, doesn't matter how owned they are. But when I say boring, I will just go for the player that I think is going to score the most points in my team, regardless. Now, of course, there are biases in there. Gundogan being cheap is maybe one that puts you off. I don't own Gundogan. I do own Cancelo, who I made my vice captain. I went for Fernandes. It wasn't the right outcome, but hey, outcome bias. Let's
put your team up so people can see what choices you had there. You had Martinez in goal, Stones, Cancelo, who was your vice captain. Robertson, who's playing tonight. Saka, Son, Fernandes captaincy, as you said, with Salah, Antonio, Watkins, Bamford. Is that cheap and effective forward front line, or half, 2/3 effective so far? And Soucek on the bench, Sanchez with a clean sheet on the bench as well.
I know, don't remind me of goalkeepers.
And points from Kilman as well. So I didn't actually realise that.
Boosted, right?
I am a fellow Soucek bencher as well, but yeah, I didn't notice that's actually 27 points. So you could have had a monster haul, but it's still pretty good with 53.
I mean, yeah, talking about trying to predict outcomes, I will bench boost in a double unless the single is too good to turn down. It just seems like, why would I take that risk? And so on captain, as you can see, I went Fernandes.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have gone Cancelo, based on the output. And maybe I missed an opportunity there. I could have been a bit braver. But the way I like to look at my team is I want double figures from my captain before the captain is played. So 10 points doubled to 20. I looked at my team and thought there's only one player there who I would back to do that this week. Cancelo, clean sheets, sure, locked in, and decent involvement.
Yeah.
But not like Fernandes is. And if we look at last night as well, speaking of outcomes, Gundogan's XGI last night was 0.42. He had 2 shots and scored 2 goals. Bruno Fernandes's was 0.79. Got nothing. Now, that's very close. And of course, in a one-match thing with even under, 1 XGI, it's massive variance. But it's not as clear-cut as people will make you maybe
It depends
think
how many stats. I mean, I know part of that debate that was going on Twitter today, I saw, the interesting points about looking at stats. And usually you want as much data as you possibly can. So you want to have, over a season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons worth of data, to point to the players like, say, Salah, etc., and see how they're comparing at the moment, whether they're on par, and how they've done over a period of time in particular roles. But in FPL, we don't have that luxury, because by the time you've got a season data, the season's finished, and you've got to move on to the next one.
Yeah, someone, I can't remember, it might have been someone at work said to me the other day, it was like, statisticians would laugh at looking at the last 4 or 6 game weeks. But like you say, by the time you have a suitable sample size, that was 2 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You just can't do that. And that's what we're constantly doing. That's why I often show stats for the last 4 matches, last 6 matches. Teams have played differently, so we can't do game weeks as such to compare different teams. But yeah, it's not ideal, but that's what we have to go with, unfortunately.
Yeah,
so,
I think the best marry-off is actually because we're forced to use short-term form stats, maybe the last 6 and last 4 game weeks, but you also have to apply some context to it with long-term tendencies, such as things like Vardy likes to score big chances, or Bamford likes to miss big chances, or stuff like that. And you go, well, okay, Bamford's got 10 big chances in the last 4. Apply the long-term tendency of he's going to make maybe 2 or 3, and you just judge your players like that.
And I mean, form is such a nebulous thing. It only seems to happen in hindsight. It's hard to predict beforehand. Something I like to try and do is take, when we've got enough of a season gone, look at the overall stats for the whole season, then last 6, then last 4, and you can see some trends. Maybe you can't see anything definitive, but if I can see a player climbing that table, I know maybe he's been improving or declining, and that can help me make my decision.
I mean, I think Calvert-Lewin is a good example of that. He started to appear last season at the top of certain tables, and it wasn't sustained. Wasn't like there was a dip towards the end of the season, but nevertheless he was showing hope. And then we're getting these comments from Ancelotti, which you can marry up with manager quotes and news, and he's basically comparing him to Inzaghi and saying did he say he's better than him or something ridiculous? But basically the manager is backing him as an absolute world class top striker, and we have seen at the beginning of the season, what was it, 10 goals, 10 starts, something like that, 10 goals in 12 starts. Huge
and
amount.
Not horribly overperforming his numbers. No. I mean, naturally, he was overperforming, as you will when you're in form, but it wasn't outstanding.
So we were seeing glimpses of that last season. We saw it come to fruition at the beginning of the season. That's exactly that sort of example. We've also seen that, I guess, with Danny Ings in that same sort of bracket. Yeah. It's like, okay, we know he's been good, but can he keep going without the injury? Oh, he can. Oh, he is still good. And we're getting that data, but sometimes you don't see it for weeks. I mean, I guess looking back in history of FPL, one of the best examples was Leicester's title-winning season. Now in the Fantasy Football Scout Moderators League, Andy, who's a Leicester fan, went for Mahrez from the off. I think he even captained him. I think he was 0.05% owned. I mean, people had barely heard of Mahrez. And no one was thinking of captaining him. Very few people might be thinking of captaining Vardy. But it took months for people like myself and other to think, hang on a minute, I'm going to captain this guy. It's not necessarily because he's cheap. It's not bias about price. It's just like I don't really know Mahrez. I haven't. It's not a player I've relied on before. And can I? And it takes a while.
I will say that.
Does, yeah.
Oh, please, after you, Ted.
Sorry, I was just going to say that if you haven't heard of the player and you see the stats, you just see, oh, he's going to regress. He's not going to last. Yeah. And it takes a while. It takes time to build up confidence in someone's performance, someone's ability. So, yeah, completely see that. I'm sure it's the same with Aaron Ramsey in that season and Yaya Toure.
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to say?
That was exactly the example. I was going to say that traditionally, I have my poorer seasons, I find, when unexpected or unsustainable things seem to sustain. So Aaron Ramsey being a perfect example, just did not pick him in anywhere near enough time, suffered badly. Leicester season, I can't remember where I finished, but it wasn't great because I just, I looked at that and thought, nah. And then by the time it was, but by the time it became obvious, it was too late for me to get on board.
Yeah, definitely. This is great. I was just going to say, because it's avoiding me talking about my team. So I'm just
going to say, if I may, Joe, I just want to touch on one last thing on my team.
Talk away.
I'll try my best. Thank you. Just as the sort of counter to me sort of thinking my Fernandes decision was well backed up, but clearly not a good outcome. And I've seen people say you should do Gundogan. I don't have him, so not an option. I could have had Gundogan if I'd done KDB to Gundogan. I went Son, and we talked about this last time. Gundogan, we thought best City option. Son, probably best overall option. If he'd scored a minute ago, it was offside. Maybe I feel a bit differently, outcome bias. Yeah. But I think rather than the match between Son and Gundogan, the mistake I actually made, which I only occurred to me probably the next day, is I now can't do Bamford to Kane very easily. I probably should have gone KDB to say Gundogan or any of those millions of midfielders we talked about. I think I had slight decision fatigue with it and just went with Son without really thinking it through. And now I'm going to struggle to grab Kane.
You weren't the only one. I really struggled to make my transfers this week and ended up with Gundogan because of the stats, even though, as we were talking about with Mahrez, I wasn't overly convinced that even though he had 5 goals in the last 7 matches, I was going, surely from a pivot role, he can't go on and just score every week. But I've just gone with the stats, and he was exceptional against West Brom. He was the best player on the pitch in my view. But the point is that your decisions weren't bad decisions. On paper, Son was the most obvious pick and the most likely. They were likely to have a double game week in 26, so it's sensible to load up. But you just can't punish yourself with hindsight about what what could have been.
And I mean, isn't that just FPL in a nutshell?
Yeah.
There are too many variables to consider them all. I think you've got to make a decision that you can explain and be happy with, and then move on.
We're going to talk about Everton shortly, but I have to get my team out of the way. So okay. Now, in a former life, I used to be a journalist and news editor at PR Week, the public relations industry magazine. And so I've met and interviewed a number of spin doctors, so I'm going to attempt to spin my way out of this one. Here's my team. Yes, that's right, 26 points going into this match. I have Ederson in goal and Stone, so I've got that City double up, the wrong City double up. Justin, who I insisted on playing over Soucek, Kufau, Dallas, Mane, Fernandes, who are captains, and Salah, and Kane. So Antonio and Bamford. So I'll get the bad news out of the way first. For the first time this season, I benched Soucek. I was just convinced that Leicester would keep a clean sheet. And that was the main decision really. It was Justin or Soucek, and foolish.
Just sod's law, Joe.
It's just the way it is. But that's the way with Soucek. You can, he gets a couple of points and then he gets a double-digit score. But, I suppose that's a way of, as an example of going against your strategy, and that's against my strategy rather. This season, I decided that I can have as my 4th midfielder Soucek. Well, I didn't need to bench him. I could just play him and and I was reaping the rewards for it. Went against it and lost out. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. That's a mistake there. But going for the spin there, you mentioned about the difficulties of getting Kane in. Hey, no problem for me. Kane's already there. So what I'm going to do, because I've still got Mane lurking around there, I've getting some really good comments in the live chat, by the way. I can't repeat them because they involve swear words, but people are exclaiming about the state of my team. So I have Kane in place for next week. I'm probably going to captain him against Brighton. Mane is going to become Son, and I am probably going to remove Bamford, who we're going to talk about shortly, for Calvert-Lewin, who we're going to talk about shortly. But I could also remove Dallas for Luca Dean, and that is another strong consideration I have. Basically, I'm keen on Everton. So let's get away from my team now. Let's hope Kane and Salah and Mane bring me to respectability by the end of the show, and move on to our first topic, which is Everton. They've got good fixtures, top of our fixture ticker at the moment. It sort of peters out a bit towards the end. Time to target Everton, I've said here. So basically, their injured troops are back, and suddenly they've got players to target across the board for us FPL managers. And they've got the fixtures as well to bring in those points. So what we've got is we've got a bunch of underlying stats about them, but they perhaps don't paint the true picture, because you're looking at an Everton side that's essentially a bit different and it's got a lot of B team players in them. So we're wondering, should we be investing in Everton? And I think now is Everton time. So they've got Newcastle coming up this weekend. Then they have Leeds. That is a great pairing for an attacker or a creative player like Luca Dean. Manchester United, a bit out of sorts, so not bad. And then Fulham at home, another good fixture. Liverpool away, it's a derby, who knows what can happen. Then they've got Southampton at home, and then Chelsea. So their immediate fixture run is really good. And so it's what we have to go through as FPL managers. Can good fixtures breed good form? That's what I'm hoping for, and that's why I'm going to look to invest somewhere in Everton and probably with Calvert-Lewin. I've got some questions here. FPL Babiega, should we be targeting Calvert-Lewin? Jules, who lives in Sydney, I believe, and Ben Karawi, among others, asking, should we be keeping or selling Bamford? So that Bamford to Calvert-Lewin move is something people are considering. And Delman says, is Bamford's time up? Luca Dean played on the left of midfield, he's noted, in the last game week. This could be something regular to keep an eye on. Is he a great option to bring in? So that's the players they're looking at. Not many questions on James Rodriguez though. So we'll see there. But it seems like Luca Dean and Calvert-Lewin are the ones that people in the community are talking about. So what I'll do is I'll put some stats up on the screen for Everton, and what this is, last 6 matches. We don't have the luxury to say at the end of this season, so last 6 matches, we're looking at who's the best at creating chances. It's Rodriguez. This is the last 6 matches they played. Rodriguez created 10, Luca Dean 9. So Luca Dean is a great option for creating chances. Shots inside the box, well, it's Calvert-Lewin time. 10 there compared to Richarlison's 6. Worth noting that Kane in defence, who's 5.1, has had 3 shots inside the box, 2 of those on target. In terms of expected goal involvement over those 6 matches, it's Rodriguez, Calvert-Lewin, Luca Dean. They're your big men. They're your big guys for this, really. So let's go you first, Ted. What do you think of Everton? And I understand you might as well just reveal what your moves have been so far. So how have you addressed Everton coming into Game Week 21?
This is my question really, isn't it? Because I've pulled the trigger. I've taken a -8. I've tripled up on Everton, which is,
okay,
now that I say it out loud, is just crazy.
No, I've just bigged them up. This is good.
I think
Andy had triple Everton at the beginning of the season, and he's like 3k. So
I think I'm overcompensating for not getting on board with Everton.
I thought you were going to say something else.
No, definitely not. Swiftly moving on. I think Everton, whether or not to bring DCL, whether or not to bring Digne, Rodriguez, is really interesting at the moment, because it's classic case of form versus fixtures, and the massive variable is that the team is about to change in its dynamic. So Everton at the moment, for me, they've improved defensively by playing the 4 centre-backs with Godfrey and Holgate either side of Mina and Keane, who have been great, by the way, I think. And that's really shored them up. But personally, I think it lacks speed in the transition between defence and attack. And when you play the Colemans and you play the Dignes of this world, you get that transition between the defence and attack, and it becomes suddenly more of an attacking team. They've really suffered with the loss of Doucouré and Alan, I think. Interesting, I think Doucouré is back from injury. He didn't play yesterday, but he's due back this weekend, and so is Alan, according to the FPL expected back 30th of January flag. So they get those two back, and suddenly they have the same personnel as they did at the start of the season, which changes a lot in my mind about the attacking prospects of Everton. What I really like about them as a team is they're very comparable to Leicester and Aston Villa in the personnel. So you've got the creative talisman, the Grealish, the James Rodriguez, and the Maddisons of this world. You've got the threatening direct player in Richarlison, Harvey Barnes, maybe the Ross Barkleys of this world. And then you've got the target man, the DCL, the Watkins, and the Vardy. I think they're very similar setups. So what I really like about Everton is you also got Digne as a world-class left-back, and he's just a sensational crosser of the ball. And you've got Rodriguez on that other side, a perfect marriage of creativity on either flank. DCL just needs to get some form going because he's without a goal in 7 matches. He's underperforming his stats. And once he starts scoring in the league, he got one in the cup. If he starts scoring in the league, then I think he could really start firing with the fixtures.
Yeah, no, I mean, the stats do bear that out. I mean, he's expected to be involved in around 2 goals, Calvert-Lewin, and he's got no goals. So yeah, I mean, that is underperforming. And you mentioned that creativity is back. So I can see why you've tripled up there. Seb, what do you think with Everton? Are you keen or wait and see?
I mean, I think Ted's covered it beautifully there. I would back up most of what he said. Calvert-Lewin, as we know, I think we'll probably see some graphics along these lines later as well. He gets those Inzaghi chances, those big chances he missed. I don't know if it went down as a big chance. They're subjective, so it's a bit tough sometimes. But he got one last night, a pretty free header, as Richarlison did. Another week those go in. I sound like a commentator now. But for me, the key thing is Rodriguez is back, and that's a massive thing for them. He was playing up front last night and dropping off. And the big thing to note for me last night was they were outplayed by Leicester, but I think they accepted it. They played 4-4-2, or James dropping in, Richarlison went up there later. But they just dropped in, they sat narrow, and they accepted it. Leicester had all of it. They didn't blow them away. It ended 1-1. And to build on what Ted was saying, the few times that Everton did really look like coming into it, which was a period in the first half especially, Dean was on the left wing. They kept him high and wide. And then on the right, Richarlison would come in and try and almost come up front. When they did step up a little bit and push really high and wide, it got around Leicester, who did have some mistakes in them at the back. And it gave them a few chances. And they probably... I don't know if there actually will have been over one, but the few chances they did get were probably big chances. So if coming up with those good fixtures, they go from the weaker team to the stronger team, I'm confident that we will see a trend reversal at the very least.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Calvert-Lewin doesn't necessarily need the stats, the number stats to do well. All he does is needs to get in the right position and put the Digne cross in, put the Rodriguez cross in. I think they're an exciting prospect. What are you going to do, Joe?
For me, I'm edging towards more Bamford out for Calvert-Lewin, because I do think Luca Digne is great. If I wasn't already sort of committed to getting Son in, I'm quite keen on getting Mane to Son. I might even get Dean and Calvert-Lewin in. I just think they've got the fixtures. There's a double coming up. There's a possibility of a double before game week 26 as well against City and whoever else, wherever they squeeze it in, which I'd be keen on. But I think it'll be Bamford to Calvert-Lewin. And one of the reasons is because my defence is kind of okay at the moment, especially with the cheap Mitchell. Is actually quite a viable asset there. West Ham with Kufal is viable when they have good fixtures. Justin, ordinarily, when Leicester have good fixtures. But Bamford I'm not happy with. And I've got a stat. And I've got a image and some stats, I should say. So what I've got on here, I had a look at the Fantasy Football Scout comparison tool. And I assessed game weeks 1 to 16 to the last 4. So game weeks 17, 18, 19 and 20. What they show is this is the average. These are the stats average per match there. So yeah, obviously, you can't compare the number of games to each other there because it's different numbers. But what you're saying is there's 80 in terms of the number of metrics. The way the comparison tool has assessed that is that Bamford was 86% better, essentially, in those first 16 game weeks. The last 4, he's completely dropped off a cliff. It's 14%. There's 10 key metrics where Bamford is performing better earlier in the season. Last 4 weeks, just one somewhere. I couldn't even find it, to be honest. But some of the stats I've pulled out there, mainly goal threat. That's what you want with Bamford. I don't really. It's not that I don't care about his creativity, but when you get Bamford, you want goal threat. And his penalty area touches are slightly down, around 5.2 for those early in the season. Last 4, 4.3. But it's some of these other stats that are very worrying. Goal attempts, edging towards 4 a match for those first 16 games, and then the last 4 just down to well under 3, 2.7. And then we're looking at big chances. So he's averaging just over a big chance a match for the first 16 matches of the season. And then it's just 0.3, hardly anything. Big chances scored. So he's got 0.4, which basically means he's scoring from every half a big chance, I guess. But his big chances scored 0. So there's absolutely nothing, really. His shot accuracy is well down. Minutes per attempt in the box down. Everything. It's down, down, down. So I think I'm committed to that because I'm getting rid of a well-owned player. This is the moment in an FPL manager's life, the Pookie moment. I've seen it described on Twitter, where you've got a highly owned, once high-performing player who you can hop off for a player that you are assuming will be the next big thing. And that's how you play FPL. Whether that is the case, whether Bamford ends up scoring a hat-trick the next game and Calvert-Lewin scores me nothing, that's the risk you take. But that's what I'm going for. But my question to you, Seb, is am I right in locking my door, telling Bamford he can't come in anymore?
So, I mean, you've covered Bamford's numbers there quite nicely. I would say he is tracking our overall numbers as Leeds. So if we improve, you would expect him to pick up as well. Okay. There's obviously some small sample sizes there going. We've covered that already. And naturally, if he's having fewer shots, him having them off target, it will come out. It's only a finite number of shots, whereas percentages obviously are fractions. So it's going to look worse. But it does track over the season. Leeds' attack, we have scored 32 goals from an XG of 29.24, so just overperforming, but pretty much bang on, for a goal XG of 61.5 per minute, which is 6.5 minutes per chance as well. In the last 2 matches, like I say, very small sample size, but it's interesting just to note the significant drop-off, and the 6 and 4 track this as well for a trend. We have had 2 goals from an XG of 1, so even overperforming there, but 185 minutes per XG, which is triple. So it's taking us 3 times as long to score and 11.7 minutes per chance. So that's doubled. So and Bamford pretty much follows that.
As a Leeds fan, now I think we spoke about it last week, the convenient narrative is that they're knackered. Bielsa's like this harsh taskmaster, and these poor Leeds guys are all like sitting in the Victorian orphanage, all like, oh, I can't move anymore. And I just don't buy that myself, because these are fit blokes.
I'm not having that. Hey, look, maybe it happens, maybe I'm wrong. Fair enough, would hold my hands up. But there is very little evidence for that over Bielsa's career.
What is it?
A little bit athletic.
Have teams found them out?
Well, I guess, so I was looking at this a bit earlier. And if we put the fatigue thing to the side, and hey, form is a thing. If we're looking at 2, 3, 4 matches, it can be bad form. We're missing centre-backs. Click didn't play, who's been important to us in the past. But I think we've played every team now. We've played everyone once, and we play a very specific style. And the big thing is we play it with relatively low-quality players. We spent a load of money on some big positions. A lot of that money, 2 centre-backs, is not in the team. Llorente got injured immediately last night again, or the other night. Rafinha's doing amazing. Yeah. But we're looking at Luke Ayling, who was 13th in the Championship before Bielsa came along. Liam Cooper, who was a League One centre-back, and then back up to Bartley and Janssen in the Gary Monk season. And I remember going to Welham Road, and with my dad, every time Cooper lined up in the defence a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we'd go, well, we're conceding today then. He's improved massively, but that's the player he was. I think these players are at the maximum level of their ability, and they on average were Championship players. So if you match that up with the fact that everyone's played us and they've seen how we're going to play, there are holes to be picked out. Bielsa, and I love him and I would not change him or his tactics, but the man marking system in particular and the way we press opponents relies on quality individuals, which he's improved our team. If we look at what Newcastle did to us the other night, they set their centre-backs very, very, very wide. Now, Bamford, we set up one-to-one all over the pitch, but with a free centre-back at the back to pick up runs. Therefore, Bamford has to cover both centre-backs. Well, if you set your centre-backs wide and separate, Bamford can't be running between two of them all day. When we brought Tyler Roberts on, he just gave up. He didn't press both of them. So Newcastle, and you saw this in the second half, started getting a lot more ball. What they did with that is then they targeted Alioski at left back, who we know isn't left back and is maybe a bit weak. We put Dallas there and it shored it up. But then taking Dallas out of midfield, weakened the midfield. We had Rodrigo and Click came on. Rodrigo's not a central midfielder. No. Click a bit out of form. The solution for us is a new left back and a new centre mid. But until that happens, if teams continue to put pressure on us in the right places, which is the midfield and not centre back, we don't have Ben White anymore, who was brilliant at press resistance, and force us into pressing high up the field and then outnumbering us with quality one-on-one players. If you've got Sadio Mane against Luke Ayling, we know how that ends. Teams can beat us.
Are there
so
any,
if people keep doing
rumours?
that.
I mean, in this transfer window, are there any rumours of a left back or a central midfielder coming in?
I'm not massively aware of left backs. There's been a few floated around. We did try and get Rodrigo de Paul as a centre mid, attacking mid over the summer. He would be playing in that Rodrigo role. He's unbelievably perfect for it. Caveat being Juventus also want him. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, no, I mean, the biggest transfer story has been Leeds getting Spurs' 300 grand pitch.
Which, to be fair, that's relevant.
It's
relevant
probably
here.
worth a few points.
I mean that's relevant here because we're looking at Bamford stats. One of those matches, we'd had the fewest number of shots we've had all season was against Brighton. You did a good job on us, but we should have had more shots. You saw that pitch. We could not play our football. No. So that will hopefully improve us. But Newcastle was away from home, so there are a few more things to look at.
So could I just chip in? Yeah. I think what's the most worrying thing about Leeds at the moment is at the start of the season, we sort of accepted that they were defensively suspect to a certain extent. They do concede a lot of big chances, which was fine because they were really great going forward. I think they were something like first out of all teams for shots in the box was for the first sort of 10 to 12 game weeks or something, which is great. You just expect a gung-ho, concede a few, score a few, blah, blah, blah. But in the last 5 game weeks, they have started regressing a little bit in that attacking sense. But what's more is that it's been sort of easy fixtures on paper. The Burnley, West Brom, Brighton, Newcastle, 4 of the last 5 fixtures. You'd expect them to be pressing on to be winning those. Well, I'm sure they did a couple. But the problem is, and I think what sealed Bamford's fate for me, I transferred him out for DCL, is he was subbed on 60 minutes. Or
59 minutes. Get it?
59 minutes.
It's important for my team this week, that one point.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. I think they were 1-1. Was it 1-1? They were still fighting for the match.
The one thing I would say on that is Bielsa does that. He has subbed Calvin Phillips within the first 15 minutes of a match in the past. He's done it with Strauch. He did Phillips in the first half twice when he came in. It doesn't mean Bamford isn't going to start next week. Hey, maybe. But if something isn't working or he thinks Roberts can offer something different, who did play okay, Bielsa will make that move. Okay. But otherwise, I do agree with you. It's not from a Leeds fan point of view. I'm fine. We need to finish 17th. We are well on track for that. We probably overperformed in the first half of the season. Okay. But from an FPL point of view, maybe that golden era is gone. If we improve again, Bamford will improve again. Maybe you can look at bringing him back in.
All of what I've heard says to me, I'm going to take that risk. Bamford out to Calvert-Lewin for a hit.
Yeah, I think that's
the best way to look at it, and we've kind of covered this, is if Leeds are trending down, Everton are trending up, Bamford to TCL seems decent.
But I think he only had 1 shot in the last 2 game weeks, something like that. And I mean, it's only the last 2 game weeks that he's really sort of not done his usual thing. And he's actually doing okay if you look at it last 4, last 6. But he's coming down, and that's what Seb's saying. It's the movement downwards which is the problem.
And Bamford needs more than okay.
Obviously, for myself and other people, and I know Ted's made this move already, Luca Dean as an attacking defender is a great option. But of course, there are other attacking defenders as well. And I think then we've got a question from Jules again on this. So I'll put some stats up on the screen. These are for the last 4 matches. So I'll come to those shortly. But Seb, attacking defenders.
Sure. So we mentioned Dean. See if we can't find a few other gems in that category. Jules asks, which defenders should we be targeting other than City? I mean, we've all got 1 or 2 now, right? Ted finally brought Cancelo in. Dean, obvious, he mentions that. Maybe Chilwell. I think we've got a graphic in a moment on that, which is quite nice. But first, you've got those stats up, Joe. I don't know if you want to run through those for us.
Well, yeah, basically what we've got here is we've got the last 4 matches. I've got a table in the Fantasy Football Scout members area, as well as goals imminent and all those other tables. I've got one of them is just simply called attacking defenders. And I usually sort it for the last 4 matches they played. And this I've sorted this by creating chances, because what I'm looking for here is you're looking for defenders who will offer chance of points at both ends of the pitch. And one of the best ways, aside from goals on the whole are quite rare with defenders, but assists are rare but less rare. So I might get some extra points there. Robertson is top, 10 chances created there. Then Tierney with 8. And then Luke Shaw, who we'd mentioned, who was actually dropped for the last game with 7. And then Luca Dean there with 7. So he's in amongst the best. Azpilicueta, if he can keep his place there with the Chelsea setup, is one to watch always. And we've certainly got the stats from him for over this past few seasons. He's been a great source of FPL points. Cancelo there, 6 chances created. He's had 8 goal attempts as well, same as Alexander Arnold. Alexander Arnold and Cancelo, but you look at the difference. The difference there is really in price, and of course in teams as well. Alexander Arnold is 7.3, Cancelo is 5.9, is he now? Both created 6 chances, both had 8 goal attempts, both had 4 shots inside the box. The key difference there is money. And of course, Cancelo plays for a very, very informed City, and Alexander Arnold plays for a very out of sorts Liverpool. Your man from last week, Seb, Matty Cash, 5 million. This is why you recommended him. He is there. So underlying stats, everyone's going, ooh, target. But perhaps
I was hoping for a Burnley clean sheet, though. I will admit that.
Could be. He's created 6 chances. He had 3 goal attempts. Not bad for 5 million. And Alex Telles. I guess it's the case with Shaw and Telles. They're going to share minutes, but Shaw's probably the number 1 there. But nevertheless, if one of those gets injured, Telles there with 6 chances created, a couple of goal attempts, 5.5 in the mix, perhaps when Manchester United.
I really disagree that they're going to share minutes. I thought Telles wasn't great against Sheffield United, and I think the whole defence was poor. Maybe that's just a reflection, a bad reflection, a bad timing.
So you think Shaw has definitely shored it up, so to speak?
Yeah, he's 100%. He's really improved defensively, and the thing that I really like, I think if I had to pick 3 defenders to own, regardless of fixtures, regardless of environment, it would be Digne, Cancelo, and Shaw, because Shaw's numbers that he's been posting recently are spectacular. But the problem is that he hasn't been assisting. I think he's got 1 assist the entire season. So he had like 18 chances created before game week 20 in the last 6, top amongst everybody. It's 6 more than the next best player. And he's 3rd for crosses behind Alexander Arnold and Robertson, top for big chances created. I really rate him as a creative left back, and I think he's improved defensively. So I don't think he'll be rotated as much.
And also, he's had 11 corners. And I put the corners in here because I always think usually you would get Cresswell is not showing up on this particular fault at the moment, although he has been performing well. But in terms of corners, Robertson, Shaw, Alexander Arnold, and indeed Telles, whenever he can get minutes from the mighty Luke Shaw, but whenever he can, these are the guys that are basically could be assisting from corners. So you got to look at who they're aiming at as well. Now Luca Dean only 4 corners, so I'm guessing Rodriguez there is going to be quite high.
Rodriguez takes him from the right, Dean takes him from the left, as far as I can see.
So that's going to reflect just the lack of corners that way. So if he's getting corners from that side, of course, who is he aiming at? He's aiming for the likes of Keane, Calvert-Lewin, of course, Richarlison,
Yerry Mina.
Yerry Mina. You've got a whole bunch of heads to aim at.
I have some Digne stats for the season on a per 90 basis. He's 1st for big chances created, 0.54 per match, which is insane. 3rd for crosses, almost just over 7 a match, which is pretty high. He has an insane assist rate, 0.65 assists per match. That's top amongst any other defender. And the expected assists are much lower. So he's overperforming. Well, I mean, his teammates are overperforming his assists. So whether
I
or
want
not
him
that
now
evens
as well.
out,
Do I take a -8 like you? Because I
super
do want both
impressive.
of these players, Calvert-Lewin and Luka Dean, because you've got on the whole, like getting Kane and Son, you're getting the scorer, you're getting the assister. I mean, not always, but your chances are you are. Like Wilson or Fraser last season.
It's a huge gamble, I think, because it's all based on Calvert-Lewin coming back into form.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't, then Digne suddenly becomes a sort of average pick.
Yeah.
Rodriguez is subjected to shots from outside the box and corners into Mina and Keane.
And Richarlison just gets sent off because he's just getting annoyed.
The one player I would add to this, and I know he was top of your chances created, is Robertson. I think I would pick Robertson over Shaw. I agree with Ted I don't think Shaw and Tellez are going to be rotated. I think Shaw can play one match a week. So when we see a midweek game, I think Tellez possibly gets the nod unless he's done really badly. But over the season, I think, Robertson is expensive, but we all have a bit of money at the moment. And I think Liverpool's poorer defence is putting us off. But he is posting some of, if not the most impressive attacking stats over the season. He needs people, maybe similar to Shaw and Dina. He needs someone to finish those off. But I've had him all season and I will hold on to him. My 3, I've got 2 City, so if I had 4, I guess, Robertson, Cancelo, and I'd be tempted to bring in Luka Dean now.
Yeah, I think that would be really good. If I saw a team with those 3, I would just think you Flairmeister. You're absolutely rocking it.
On that basis, Joe, I'm doing it just so I get your praise.
Just as we are hoping or predicting that Everton have an upturn in form. Of course, there's been a change at Chelsea. Now, I understand, Seb, that you were quite interested in the first match of the new regime there. So I'm going to put a picture up here. And I've also included, it says, for those watching, I'll tell. Basically, what this shows is that number 20 and number 21 are very high up the pitch. So yeah, tell those listening on the podcast who number 20 is for Chelsea and who is 21 and why we should be interested.
So a little caveat just before I do. Obviously, this is Thomas Tuchel's first match, one training session. These are quick assumptions that we can make from that match. At PSG, I believe he mostly played a 4-3-3. As Karam said last week, he did switch into a 3 at the back, but I think it was 3-5-2. He played a 3-4-3 last night, which I don't think he's done since Dortmund. But what it did mean is he has 2 very high, very wide wing backs. Number 20, it's Hudson Adore. So he's a midfielder for us, maybe less interesting. But if you look at the heat map, he's the player furthest forward.
So he's a sort of Victor
playing
Moses,
like an attacker.
Victor Moses of old, listed as a midfielder, but playing as a wing back.
Absolutely. Right. But then the one that maybe is of most interest to us as FPL managers is Ben Chilwell, number 21, possibly the 3rd, 4th highest there, high and wide on the left. Now, he didn't get involved as much last night. I can't remember the touch numbers off the top of my head, but Hudson Adore saw a lot of the ball, and Ziek did as well. Chilwell less so, but maybe a slight outlier there, and we'll see how it develops.
Liverpool goal.
Salah, Mane, Salah.
Firmino, I think.
Oh, what?
Of course it was.
Obviously.
Of course it was.
And the assist was?
Mane's got the ball.
Possibly Robertson, because it came from the left.
The Mane assist.
Was it Mane?
Yeah. There you go, Joe. Keep Mane.
Well, I'm, inside, those pictures of the end of the Second World War, VE Day, like on Wall Street or something, all the ticker tape coming down and big parade. That's what's going on in my head at the moment because I've got an assist in my team.
Oh, you're remaining very composed.
I know, inside my head there's a VE Day, but I'm being composed.
Wonder what the XG value for that shot is off Firmino. 100%?
Slight half volley, so yeah,
it's 100% celebration.
I mean, I guess by the time anyone who listens to this, obviously,
no one's got Mane.
It's basically a tap in.
This is great. Any points for Mane is great for me because no one got him except me. So always mum. I don't know. So anyway, yeah. Sorry, Seb.
Hey, speaking of Robertson, we laid on Mane there, I think. So Chilwell, we want to, Marcus Alonso is always a threat, but I'm not too worried about him. Reece James on the right hand side would be very nice, but we already know that potentially is a rotation option. It's a back 3. We see Azpilicueta quite high there. Now, he has been a bonus point magnet in the past, playing in a back 3. So something to keep an eye on. But again, you'd probably pick the wing back. The other player I'd like to highlight is Hakeem Ziek. So he, I believe, is number 22. He is in that sort of right inside forward, almost second number 10 channel there. He had an obscene amount of touches the other night, created 4 chances, had 3 shots, one of which was on target, all from long range though. All we kind of need from Chelsea is them to play better as a team than they did last night. They had 78% possession, but only mustered 14 shots, and they weren't great quality. If we're seeing this sort of style, heavy possession, high wing backs, lots of touches and involvement for Ziyech, there are options there. We just need to see goals from it as well.
The issue I have, and I think the worry, is that Tuchel loves to tweak it up during the match. You know, he could change formation 3 times, and it could just dramatically affect your Chelsea assets' potential. Like Chilwell could be a winger at one point, and then second half he's playing like almost a left centre back. So who knows? I think Chilwell didn't have a great game against who did they play?
Wolves.
Wolves, yeah, he didn't have
Which
a great
maybe
game.
is indicative as well. You know, Wolves are probably very comfortable just to sit in and let someone have
passes. And also the fact you
right?
can't even remember who they... It proves how ineffective Wolves have been in attack recently.
It wasn't a great game, to be honest. I mean, Wolves did well to defend it, but I think probably that sums Chelsea up. Lack of clear-cut opportunities. I'm sure they pressed and plodded, quite a lot, and they probably created a lot of small chances, but it didn't quite work, and Wolves defended quite well. But I'd be interested to see what the first game from Tuchel with a few training sessions under his belt actually turns out like.
Would it be fair to say that we can have a little watching brief for now? You know, we're not lacking options in midfield and defence where the attractive things are. You know, Werner was on the bench. We think he'll come in, of course, but I think we can watch and learn a bit more. There's potential there, but we'll see how it goes.
What's coming out from Chelsea fans at the moment, looking at the way the management has been in the past, is looking at that and thinking there's going to be rotation. There were some quotes coming out today from Tuchel about Mason Mount and Gilmour as well. With my journalist head on, I looked at what they are not saying and reading between the lines, and I found them quite passive aggressive. In basically what it was saying about Mason Mount, the key word there was about development, the player's development. That says to me, I'm bringing him on as a sub, maybe. And that doesn't say... So basically, those days of Mason Mount starting every match are not going to happen. He might start
Which is a shame, because his stats were great. Yeah. But I think if Tuchel continues with this shape, the thing for me with Mason Mount is I don't know if his role exists. He could play centre mid, sure, but we saw Jorginho and Kovacic in there who had a silly number of touches. At PSG, Marquinhos used to start in midfield, naturally a centre-back, and drop in. I don't think Mason Mount can do the roles that he wants in that system.
And also with Gilmour, the key word that was there was talking about physicality of the league. So that was the phrase that I picked up on. He was also going, wow, isn't he fast? Isn't he, got a quick footballing brain? Physicality of the league. Basically, that said to me, I may be wrong, but it said to Gilmour, he's a tiny fella, quite quick. I'm not sure I'm going to play him. And that's what it said to me. So I think some of the personnel you got there at the moment, you're going to get younger players coming in. And there will be an element of rotation, but it's a watching brief. And we've got the matches to do it. They've got Burnley at home coming up next. Okay, Burnley can be tough. Then they've got Tottenham. And I think that gives us 3 games, really small sample, that gives us 3 games to get a bit more information. And then Game Week 23, Sheffield United away. And then Game Week 24, Newcastle at home. So we can perhaps start in a future Scoutcast, start moving from watching brief to Chelsea to I'm actually going to get some of these guys in now. But we not quite sure who they are and who's going to be the best one. But as you pointed out there, Seb, Chilwell is definitely one to keep an eye on, especially if he's taking that quite high role from defence. Points at both ends of the pitch. Now, Ted, you've come armed with a whole bunch of pictures. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put these up and you're going to explain what's going on with them. And then also how they are relevant to us as FPL managers. So the first picture I'm going to put up is the big chances, small chances graphic. So basically, looking at this screen here, where is good for players to be, where is bad, and Yeah, who should we be targeting perhaps?
So I reckon players further towards the top is a good starter because we like big chances. We like to see players with big chances because they're easy to finish. But if we want a combination of lots and lots of shots and lots of quality shots, then we want them to be in the top right-hand corner of this graph. Okay. So top right-hand corner, who are the best players? Well, Kane is close up there. Fernandes is not as good on the big chances, but he's got so many shots, having so many shots. Watkins is the interesting one, and I think Seb, you'll be happy to see that. Seven big chances.
I'm a fan of his.
So this is last 6 matches data, rather, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, so last 6 matches for each player. So everyone's on a like-for-like basis. And I've removed players that have played a while back. So like Jota, for example, he's not on it. So So I think it's an interesting way of looking at it because you don't necessarily judge a player by the total amount of shots that he's having. So for Son and Lacazette, for example, they're on the top left of this chart and they've got 8 big chances in the last 6 matches, but they've only got 4 small chances. So they just only really go for big chances, which is just by the nature of how they play, especially with Son. We've seen in this match already, Kane just has to feed that through ball to Son. He's through on goal. Whether he scores or not is another matter. He's been underperforming.
Looking at long-term data as well, last time you were on a good few weeks back now, Son was in the same place. Lots of big chances, not many small chances. This is nice for us as FPL managers. We know what we're getting here. We're getting someone who's clinical.
Yeah. Absolutely. Although he hasn't been that clinical in the last few, has he? I think he was top for big chances missed or something like that. So
dare I say a slight regression to the mean. We've seen tonight he scored an offside goal and then put a similar chance straight at Alisson.
Yeah, absolutely. So the good thing is that if he keeps getting those chances, then that's going to average out and he's going to still be in the goals. Interesting points on this chart, I think, for us, for our decision making. Gundogan seems to be the real deal. He's really up there with the likes of De Bruyne, even Aubameyang looks quite good as well, which is strange. But Bamford's there as well, but he's presumably on the way down. I think Bamford was top right.
He was
at the start of the
season.
He
was sort of now on this picture here. Kane is sort of edging towards that higher bit of the goal there. I remember last time you were here, Bamford was sort of in that same area. So as we were saying there, Bamford we can see getting worse. Kane still up there, Fernandes still up there.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Giroud is another one, which is interesting. Obviously, he doesn't start every match, and that's going to be a theme for Chelsea with the array of options that they have. But if you look through the stats that he has for each match, they're very impressive. He's a goal scorer at the end of the day, and he gets in the right positions. That's going to feed his use. But he's getting the quantity and the quality of the chances.
Ted, what would you say that this brings to? We see a player's XG, and then we can see small and big chances. How would you say that helps us understand something like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and probably the fundamental reason why I use big and small chances. If you add them both together, you get total number of shots, and that can be related to XG. But if you get total number of shots and you look at James Maddison here, for example, he's got 17 shots, 16 of them are small chances, only one of them is a big chance. Whereas you look at Son, he's got 12 shots, less than Maddison. So on paper, you go 17 for Maddison, 12 for Son. Oh, Maddison must be better. But Son has had, 2/3 of his shots are big chances. So it's a really, a fundamental reason why you need to have that context about choosing.
Firmino has scored tonight. And interestingly, he's in that group of Gundogan, of De Bruyne and Giroud that you were speaking about. And so we can see here that Firmino is being effective. This is this table in action as we're speaking. And also I just want to shout out to Philip Appleby's 11-year-old daughter, who is now on 74 points with her team because she has Firmino as well as Gundogan, Cancelo and Stone. So I don't know whether she's been having a look at your table here because she's got all the top players and she's doing really well.
I think we need to know what her overall rank is.
Well, she's on 74 this week. I don't. That's what we need to know about this week.
Yeah, so there's it's interesting. Like the XG obviously incorporates level of quality of chance, but you don't get that breakdown. You see an XG of 4, but you don't know whether that's 40 shots of a small chance or 400% chances. So it's very difficult to determine the breakdown of each shot by not splitting it out into big and small chances.
Okay, now that we know the sort of players that are doing well at the moment, the ones who are a bit on the slide and the ones that are getting those big chances and small chances as well, the next picture we got up is big chances and small chances conceded by teams as well. So once again, where's the good bit in what we're seeing here? Where is the area you want a team to be in, and where is an area you're not quite sure whether you want them to be in, and which are the good teams and the bad teams essentially?
So yeah, this is defensive ability of each of the 20 Premier League teams, and if we look at the top right of that chart, that is where the whipping boys, as we say, will be. They've conceded the most big chances, the most small chances. We expect them to concede loads of goals in their matches. So that is West Brom. They haven't kept a single clean sheet in their last 6 matches, and I think that's going to be a trend. The also worrying thing is that along that line, they've conceded the same number of big chances as West Brom, 16. You've got Leeds, Crystal Palace, Fulham, and Chelsea. And Chelsea worries me a lot. Obviously, we're talking about Chilwell. As an owner myself, that really needs to improve. Obviously, Tuchel might employ different tactics.
Another reason to perhaps wait on Chelsea to see. So what we would hope to see perhaps in a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, is Chelsea moving from the top, as in conceding a lot of big chances, and moving much further down, somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. So bottom left, we've got the best defences. That's Man City by an absolute country mile.
Yeah.
They've got 5 clean sheets in their last 6 matches. They've conceded the fewest. I think they've only conceded 2 big chances. The second fewest number of small chances, and they've only conceded 2 goals in their last 11 matches, which is an incredible stat, really. But next best after the Man City, we know about Man City. Next best, West Ham look really good. 3 clean sheets in their last 6 matches. Leicester look all right as well, but they've only kept 2 clean sheets, and maybe they're underperforming a little bit. The surprise here, I think, is Sheffield United. Sheffield United look 4th or 5th best defence. Unbelievable, but only 1 clean sheet in the last 6 matches. So
if only we'd have seen this prior to captaining Fernandes. Now, those who are thinking of captaining Gundogan, should they be thinking twice? Are Sheffield United a bit better than we've given them credit for?
If you don't look at the stats, it's a really good question. If you don't look at the stats and you go, Man City, is it at home to Sheffield United? I think it is. That's a really good option. Gundogan is in great form. Why not captain him? But Sheffield United are surprising. Maybe they're starting to solidify that back line. Maybe they're starting to buy into something else that Chris Wilder is selling to them. So don't know what's changed at Sheffield United, but it certainly looks like they've improved a little bit, and it puts me off captaining a City player, maybe. So the other option maybe this week is Spurs against Brighton. And Brighton are serial underperformers with their defensive stats. Middle of the pack tend to be because they're a possession team. They like to impose their thoughts on the game. So not 100%. We'll come to that a bit later. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Tottenham are always bottom right because they let their opponents have possession for most of the game. They let their opponents shoot, but not many of them are big chances. So it's interesting that Tottenham have only got 1 clean sheet in the last 6 because they were arguably one of the best defences earlier in the season.
You mentioned there, obviously, looking at how teams are defending to understand this a bit as well. Would it be fair to say, so Sheffield United, I think we've seen all seasons, we looked at a couple of Scoutcasts ago, Joe, that they're doing worse than their numbers suggest.
Yeah.
But then when we come down to what I'm, watching when I'm watching the match, is someone like Aaron Ramsdale the cause of that, or are they unlucky? And I think identifying the cause for these sort of things can be really helpful. Is that something you can, we look at the previous graph and we see West Brom top right. We see, Son top left. Son has West Brom in a couple of game weeks, 23, I think it is. Are those sort of comparisons something you maybe want to line up and try and find, not only targeting players, but finding causes for why people are appearing where they are?
Absolutely, 100%. I think the goalkeeper is the pivotal reason for over underperformance. So I take that back to maybe last season. We looked at defensive ability by team, and Chelsea and Everton were one of the few of the best teams for fewest number of chances conceded, but they were one of the worst for conceding more than they should have, because Kepa for Chelsea has been a poor goalkeeper, and Pickford has been a liability for Everton. So it's always the goalkeeper that's maybe going to be letting more goals than they should have. And I completely get your point about Ramsdale at Sheffield United. I don't have the stats on him, but he doesn't seem to be the safest pair of hands by perception.
I just had a look at the stats. There's a handy stat which is expected goals prevented on goalkeepers, and so this is essentially saying that Johnston, Adrian, whenever he plays, Ramsdale, Guita, and Matt Ryan are the worst at the moment. There were 3 goals over the last 4 matches. It's only the last 4 matches, but there's been 3 goals that Ramsdale really was expected to have prevented there, and he didn't.
That's interesting. Matt Ryan is a really interesting one.
And Ryan, because Brighton, and that may explain some of Brighton. So it'd be interesting to see where Sanchez is. So
I would love to comment on that, but Trent Alexander-Arnold has just scored, I think.
Ooh. Oh, really?
I think so.
Mane assist by any chance?
I didn't catch the assist, I'm afraid. I was captivated by this.
Assist.
Oh, goodness.
2 assists.
That's a turn up.
It's VE day, it's VJ day, it's Mane day in my head.
They've got a replay here now, so it's over on, Mane breaking in.
So I'm in.
Mane has a shot, comes back, and Trent finishes that well, to be fair. That would be a low XG, I'd imagine.
Mane is perhaps going to stay in my team. I don't know. Is he playing?
We were talking about outcome bars earlier, Joe.
Well, one.
Mane should really do better with that, shouldn't he? He's just palmed it out.
I need to have some. I'm going to get the old comparison tool at Fantasy Football Scout out on Mane and
the
Salah.
thing I'd love to add to your XG prevented, Joe, is just that I believe that's recorded as an absolute number. So if you concede more shots, you will appear higher on that list, basically, no matter what. Correct me if I'm wrong. Someone like Alisson, Edison are probably about mid-table, when really you'd think, shouldn't they be the best goalkeepers? If you do it as a ratio of shots conceded, that's a slightly better way of understanding goalkeeper quality. Although I guess for FPL, we just care about save points, so fair enough.
Edison is actually one of the best at the moment. If you look at, I was just looking at Sanchez as well, because the important thing is you can pretty much attribute a lot of the goals conceded by Brighton down to Matt Ryan being rubbish. So Sanchez is also a little bit rubbish. Not as rubbish, but over the last 4 matches, there was at least a goal where Sanchez was expected to have prevented there. Meanwhile, at the top of the tree, you've got Areola at Fulham. He's actively prevented 4 goals. And then you've got the likes of Pope, Alisson, Leno, Lloris and Edison, who all have basically saved a goal there. Definitely. They were expected to score it, didn't. They prevented it. So, what, are you going to tell me that Mane scored again?
No, I'd say the opposite. I don't know if Højbjerg is the opposite of Mane, but he scored.
Ooh. Rocket.
Yep.
That's good for me. I don't have any Liverpool defenders.
All those clean sheets wiped out. And I also think Harry Kane might have gone off at half-time.
Really?
Which changes quite a lot.
Now,
someone said it in the chat and I don't see him on the pitch.
Well, I have gone from VE Day in my head to outbreak of war to Kane subbed. It says here. What? Okay, we're going to come to this. Stay tuned for Fantasy Football Scout and Team Talk between Andy and Neil tomorrow. Look out for that video and podcast. We'll have more on that Kane subbing, because that's going to be important news for people, and that may massively alter my plans. Let's come back to your tables, Ted. I'm going to move on to this other one, next one, about clean sheet probability. These are matches here. So what you've got here is you've got each match up there. So, and then you've also got them again, whether they're home or away, who they're playing. So once again, where's good and bad on this table, and who are the teams that, what are the matches that we should be targeting for potential clean sheets for our defenders?
Yeah, so this is game week 21 specific, and basically the likelihood of each team keeping a clean sheet against their game week 21 opponents. Bottom left is the most likely to keep a clean sheet. So we've got Man City against Sheffield United. We've got possibly Everton against Newcastle, Leicester against Leeds, and Wolves against Crystal Palace. And Chelsea Burnley there as well. So top right is teams that we'd expect to concede because their opponents are very good at attacking. And that looks, I mean, there's no clear cut, but Southampton versus Villa doesn't look great. So if you've got Southampton defenders, I probably wouldn't play them against Aston Villa. All other teams are a bit strange because you've got West Brom against Fulham, and that's like a poor defence against a poor attack. You've got plenty of that sort of thing going on with Crystal Palace, Wolves, Newcastle, Everton. So it's a bit unpredictable, I think I like the fact that Everton have a good chance of keeping a clean sheet against Newcastle because Newcastle's attacking stats are really poor. And as a newly founded Dina owner, I'm quite happy about that. But yeah, Man City defenders should stand a really good chance against Sheffield United as well. But yes, it's very difficult to say what's going to happen, I think. Liverpool-West Ham is an interesting one because they have very similar stats, attacking and defensive. So it could be an interesting battle. I don't think either of them keep clean sheets.
I think my question, probably repeating myself here for each one, but maybe that's a useful trend. Comparing this again to the previous chart, you would probably say it's those teams that overlap in the favourable positions that we want to be targeting?
Overlapping in favourable positions? As in opponents of each other?
Oh, as in, so if I take this graph and compare it to, if I've got who big chances, small chances, who's creating and conceding, if I then also look at their XGC, their XG, and then you've got your opponents just in the next match here, I can probably really nail in who's got good defensive form, who is facing a good attack, a bad attack, something along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. The under overperforming element as well. You could combine it all and get a really good model. But yeah, purely from just a visual perspective, it's good to get at least an idea about who the good teams are, certainly by XG and the good defenses and things like that. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think we'll move on from this one because I think the attacking one is still representative of this later.
Okay,
on.
so we've got the next one up, which is this is teams, big chances and small chances here. So once again, I'm presuming right in the top right hand corner you've got Man City. I'm presuming that's the good place to be. Lots of small chances, lots of big chances as well. Villa right up there. And then you've got Liverpool, loads of small chances, but less big chances. And where you sort of don't want to be is where West Brom, Crystal Palace, Everton, but we've already highlighted the fact they were without a lot of their creative players, and Newcastle. These are not the place you want to be. This is right at the bottom of this graph. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the useful one here is to determine over and under performance. We can see Everton's there mingling with the teams that don't really create much or haven't created much, but they've got 8 goals in their last 6 matches. When you compare that to the teams around them, the Southamptons and Newcastles, who only got 2, Crystal Palace have only got 5. So they're overperforming from the amount of chances that they've got. But I think they just have better players, and therefore they're probably going to convert a few more. I expect Everton's numbers to actually improve with the personnel that they've got back, the changing team dynamic. Hopefully it flows through to a more attacking side. The interesting one there for sure is Southampton, because they were one of the form teams before Christmas, and one of the teams that we targeted towards the theoretical double game week in 19, which didn't transpire in the end. But the Shea Adams, the Danny Ings, the Ward-Prowses of this world, I remember that they weren't too far forward from that position, but they had 14 goals in their last 6 matches at one point. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, that really is overperforming. But when you've got the Ward-Prowses of this world putting in every single free kick that you get, then you are going to be overperforming. So it's sad to see Southampton regressing, and it puts me off Southampton assets going forward. I know I'm probably going to keep my Southampton assets because of that possibility of having a double game week in 24. And I know it's either Southampton versus City or Everton versus City. We will have to wait and see what that might be. I mean, that's just conjecture. So we will see. The other interesting part on here, Chelsea are really not in a good place again. They're not in a good place defensively, and this doesn't fill me with confidence either for their attack. Only 4 goals in the last 6 matches, and they are down on the big chances. They're good for small chances, but they're down on the big chances. They're not creating those clear-cut opportunities. So I really need to see an improvement.
We need to, once again with Chelsea, watching brief there, they're low down at the moment, so they've got a small base to go on. Let's look at the final one. This is goals probability in a match. So this is what you want. You want a high scoring match. Now, once again, where's good on this table, where's bad, and what are the matches we should be targeting. And also, I just want to get an understanding with the goals probability in the match. Is that the probability of goals from both sides? So, a 5-5 thriller, or is this the probability? For example, Man City beating Sheffield United 5-0. What are we talking about in terms of goal?
Liverpool goal. Sorry, Joe.
That's fine.
Salah.
Thank you very much,
Mo Salah. Looked like a nice finish.
Well, I hope so. Because after
I would love to rewind to the beginning of this podcast and listen to your opinions on Mo Salah and Mane again.
Well, I'm gonna. Well, what's changed my opinion from this week, my planned transfers, is less that I'm getting points from Mane and Salah. It is that I'm. Is that Mane 3 assists?
It might be. They're looking at it. I think VAR
they better stop looking.
Firmino in the build-up. I'm not sure whether they're going to go.
Looking at Firmino's hands and look at my face and the joy I would get from Mane assisting Salah.
It was a nice finish by Salah.
I'll be honest, Joe. You look as stoic as normal.
There's a party in my head.
There we go. There's a smile. There's a
party in my head. No, what's really changed my chance is that I've got Kane. I got Kane in. Apparently, he went off with an ankle injury. So we are not sure how that's going to pan out. But it certainly places a lot of doubt in my mind about captaining him. So it also makes me think, because we know what happens with Spurs when Kane's out and who plays up top, and it's usually Son, and Son usually goes absolutely mental with goals. So I'm going to really want Son, and now I've got Mane and Salah doing their best to avoid it. They've saved my game week. Decisions.
It's not looking good, Joe, I'm afraid.
Oh, don't you?
They keep repeating this Firmino handball, and it does look like a handball.
It looks unlucky, ball to hand, but it is a handball in the rules. If that's leading to the goal,
the ref is going over to the monitor. It's probably going to be disallowed.
I'll tell you what that ref should do. He should walk away from that monitor, and he can come around my house. We can have a beer together.
we've got a great angle here. We're over the shoulder of the ref, watching the
no goal. Salah's strike is ruled out due to an earlier handball from Firmino. Thank you for absolutely nothing. Okay, let's move on.
Hey, Salah still put a ball in the net.
He still put a ball in the net.
I know it doesn't count, but that wasn't Salah's fault.
It's between Salah. Oh, don't know.
Yeah, it's been disallowed. No.
Yeah.
No goal.
Okay, did the joy and woe continues. Let's have a look at the next 4 fixtures. As we move on. So looking at this, once again, always mentioned that we are partnered with Football Index for this section of the Scoutcast. So there may be also players looking at buying through Football Index. That is where you can buy and sell shares in players using fancy football knowledge to make a profit. So having a look at the next 4 fixtures, as we've mentioned lots of times, Everton are top, Newcastle, Leeds, Manchester United and Fulham. Great set of fixtures there. Manchester United, maybe. But Fulham, definitely good. Leeds and Newcastle. Crystal Palace are next. So this one, I'm probably going to play Mitchell this week. Got Wolves, Newcastle, Leeds and Burnley. This is a great set of fixtures. Chelsea have a good set of fixtures as well. But we're on a watching brief for them. But if someone wanted to dive in, they got Burnley, Tottenham, Sheffield United and Newcastle. Manchester United's kind fixtures, all around the mixed fixtures continue. They've got Arsenal away, Southampton, Everton and West Brom away. I like the look of the West Brom one in particular away because Fernandes tends to be better away. West Brom are so they're the most whippiest whipping boys I've ever seen. West Ham, they got Liverpool next, and then Villa, then Fulham and Sheffield United. So okay, and then Fulham themselves, Fulham have got the whipping boys West Brom next. And I'm wondering, I'm talking about Spurs assets to get in, but maybe Fulham assets. But they play Leicester, West Ham, and then Everton, and then right down at the bottom, worst fixtures: Brighton, Tottenham, and Liverpool next. That's pretty horror show. Then they got Burnley away and Villa at home. So that's a really poor set of fixtures there. Burnley, Chelsea, City, and then Brighton. That's a bit better for them. And then Crystal Palace and Sheffield United are down there. They, next four they've got City and Chelsea. But I mean, we've had a look at all your stats there, Ted, and all your tables there. But that just looks at the next four. So, which teams do you think we should be targeting other than Everton that we've already sort of mentioned quite a lot?
Yeah, I was going to say Everton. I've gone all guns blazing. I think it's between three teams that have the potential and the fixtures sort of, and that's the ones we sort of mentioned earlier: Everton, Leicester, and Aston Villa. They're all good attacking teams, and they've all got good couple of fixtures in between those four. So Everton's got Newcastle, Leeds. Villa have got the Brightons, the West Ham, Southamptons. That I think it's those fixtures. Nothing stands out in particular, but those four. In the four is they're okay, and Grealish looks so good against I forget.
Well, he looks good against everyone. I don't even.
He nearly scored that Son goal, didn't he? Just run from the halfway line and nearly scored. He looked excellent. Leicester, I know a lot of people are eyeing up Maddison and Harvey Barnes, and Leeds and Fulham up next. I can see why. It just puts me off with not having a recognised striker. Well, Vardy, not having Vardy fit is the worry. But I like Harvey Barnes. I think he's ticking it, and I probably would have gone for him I think he's probably third choice actually after Grealish and James Rodriguez for me, because his stats are good. We looked at those player stats at the start. 3 big chances, plenty of small chances, looks very threatening against Everton. So I've changed my mind quite a few times about Maddison and Barnes. They're just different kind of players. Barnes is the more direct, threatening guy. Maddison likes to have the 3 kicks. He's got great technique, but they tend to be more spectacular efforts. So Harvey Barnes is a good shout. I think you can't go wrong. I had in my video earlier in the week Christian Pulisic, but as we say with Chelsea, watch him breathe. And I'm not even sure he starts most games. But if Tuchel can get the best out of him, then he could be great. He could be great, especially when the 4 fixtures coming up for Chelsea: Burnley, Sheffield United, and Newcastle.
Seb, any thoughts about those next 4 fixtures?
I mean, I think you've covered the teams pretty well there. So the thing that jumps out to me is looking at captaincy going ahead. Man City, Sheffield United, Burnley, that's probably easy enough. You could, discuss it in detail and go elsewhere, but there's some good options. Game week 23, they've got Liverpool.
Yeah.
Man United, Everton. I think you probably need some Tottenham players for 23. West Brom at home. We saw on your graphs earlier, Ted, how that might be very, very tasty. And we've just seen Kane go off injured. Now, 23 is a long way away, but it's Kane's ankle I was reading, which I think he's had problems with in the past. So complete speculation here. He only went off 20 minutes ago. But if there's no Kane, is there basically only one option that I'd be very, very happy with for captaining in that week? The other one maybe Antonio away at Fulham.
Yeah, I think looking at that as well. Yeah, I think you're right. West Brom at home, 23. I mean, that's why I got Kane in. I actually got Vardy in for these fixtures for the Leeds, Fulham, and Wolves games coming up. I got rid of Vardy because he got injured with had a hernia operation for Kane, and so Kane's off injured. That's another short to medium term captain option gone. But Son is I agree, would be the runaway leader there. Looking at that, I can't see any other options really for the captaincy. Yeah, so I think I probably would be looking at getting Son in. at some point. Let's move on to a differential to pick. Just before we do that, just to mention that you can sign up to Football Index today. They've got a 7-day £500 money back guarantee, and there's a link in the description below to sign up. So there's a link to check out the full terms and conditions. This is for 18 plus only. Please gamble responsibly. You can check out begambleaware.org, and there's a link for this in the description as well. So we've had Cancelo, Gundogan, Antonio, and Cash, who's yet to bring in the money for you, Seb, as our last differentials. But it's Ted's turn. So who is the best low-owned 5% or under gem for the next 4 matches? Are you about to tell me another goal?
Just before we jump into that, I am desperate to tell you who scored a goal.
Kane? off the bench?
It's better than that.
Mane,
you can smile.
Mane.
Yeah, Mane scored. He's got 1 goal and 3 assists. Trent Alexander-Arnold assist.
Well, I'm happy.
Wow,
he's got 2 assists, you mean? Because the third one was chalked off. Or has he scored more?
Oh, no, good point. Sorry, yes. Yeah. Got carried away. 2 assists, 1 goal.
I'm not complaining.
Alexander-Arnold.
Now
and looking at, just this match, but I think he's at about 5 shots as well. He's deserved this. Salah's had 1 or 2.
This is one of those moments where I think a lot of people with captain hindsight would go, "Oh, I really wish I had captain Mane." Mane was never in my thoughts to captain. I'm just happy to have him.
It's a good thing 2 days ago we didn't talk about Liverpool's underperformance, right?
Yeah, this is really good. Okay, so going back to I don't know what I'm on now in terms of, but my absolutely dire score earlier of 26 is now much more. So I think I've breached the 45 or so mark. So I'm entering average respectability, and I'll take that definitely. Yeah, Ted, a differential.
I'm just checking Mane's ownership so I can choose him. Damn it, 7%. No, I can't.
It's only 7% though.
Unbelievable.
People are sick of me saying the word dullard, so I've got a new way of describing the way I play. Crate Digger on Twitter earlier, it's called my style of play. Well, this is in general lots of people's style of play. Beige upside chasing. I'm slight improvement chasing. So Mane for me at 7% ownership in the top 10k is actually only owned by less than 3% of managers around me in the rankings. That's definitely beige upside chasing.
Is that better?
Point.
No,
it doesn't sound.
Just people are sick of me saying dullard, so I'm just going to say I'm a beige upside chaser for a while.
It's like hunting for a better sofa in DFS, isn't it? It's just. Yeah. It's not very exciting, but you can get a good deal.
We had cream. I think we'll get eggshell white.
Yeah. All the flavours of beige.
Joe, if it gets your points, what were you saying the other night? You've never finished outside the top 100k? It works. Take it, carry on, and win.
Oh, my God. And anyway, I'm really excited. I'm very excited by this. And we keep interrupting you, Ted, with all this amazing upside chasing definitions. So who is your differential for Game Week 21?
I was going to go for Luke Shaw, but because he's fairly lowly owned, 2.2%, but we've talked about him quite a lot. So I'm going to go for Aston Villa's Bertrand Traore, 0.6% owned, 5.9 million, pretty understated player. But before Game Week 20, he had the most attacking returns out of all midfielders in the league. More than Bruno, more than KDB. 5 attacking returns in the previous 6 matches. I think Saka has now overtaken him for that after Game Week 20. But it really surprised me that he's been so successful. And he has been overperforming to a certain extent. I think his XGI delta was plus 2.4 goals. So definitely overperforming. But it shows a lot of confidence to score that many goals. A lot of clinical finishing. He's a 100% big chance conversion. 4 big chances plus big chances created. And Villa look a really good attacking side, and he loves to shoot. Bertrand Traore. I was watching him against Burnley, and he loves that left foot shot. He's on free kicks. I think he's on corners as well. The good thing about not having Grealish is that Grealish doesn't really like the responsibility of taking too many free kicks or indeed penalties, and Bertrand Traore really steps up. So if you are very, very maverick, then I would consider him because his fixtures aren't too.
Did you watch it
bad.
last? Did you watch the Scoutcast last week? Because Seb was quite scathing about Traore.
I really like those numbers. I really like those numbers. But what it says to me, and hey, maybe that's why he's a good pick now. It's like his good season at Lyon, where he had these sort of numbers for a while. Like you said, he overperformed, and then he fell off a cliff to the point where they were delighted to get rid of him. Now, don't hate him as a player by any means. In fact, he's been pretty decent for Aston Villa. I'm just worried about there's that cliff edge that might come. And it wasn't just, underperformance. He just disappeared.
Yeah, 100%. It's the same with Maddison right now. I think the players that are really overperforming. I like to use the analogy, you can surf the wave of overperformance before it crashes, before it inevitably crashes, because it's going to be a good wave for a short amount of time, and then you just have to get off because it's not gonna last. So yeah, I think it maybe 2 or 3 more game weeks, maybe, but after that, probably not an option.
And hey, he only needs to be good for 4 weeks for you, so fair enough. That's possibly my biggest concern. Isn't a problem to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, we all forget about this pick if he completely does.
Well, the thing is, I gave my opinion on Traore last week. He just because he looks so fabulous, and there's something about Traore's. Whenever they score, they just look fabulous. So yeah, I'm okay with that. It's not for me. I've got enough issues to look at, and of which let's move on to that before we sign off. So here is my team. So I have currently my bus team: Ederson in goal, Justin against Leeds, Stones against Sheffield United, Mitchell against Wolves, and then I've got Soucek, who I'm just going to play every week now. Mane, Fernandes, and Salah. Kane captain, Antonio, and Bamford. On the bench I have Steer, Dallas, Kufau and Stevens. So obviously Kane possibly won't be my captain now, unless I get some news. I'm certainly, even if we get those sort of he might be fit, might not be, that's too risky for the captaincy for me. Son is probably the standout against Brighton, but I don't know. Maybe I need to look elsewhere. I need to look at the opportunity. Mane's 15 points, I believe he's going to be getting me tonight. Certainly makes me think maybe I should be keeping him because, but there's that recency bias. In which case, do I move to Son? Maybe I look elsewhere. I've certainly got Kane and Bamford who I don't want. Maybe I should just go Calvert-Lewin and Watkins and just have some money in the bank and decide next week.
Good moves.
I think this might be a case of having to be slightly different with the captaincy and at the same time just fix issues. I think that means I'll be going without Son, which I'm not happy about in Brighton, and I will be always cheering Brighton on, but I shall be in fantasy world definitely cheering them on. I don't know, I'm looking at my team there in terms of benches, and I mean it's a bus team as it is, but I think that would probably be my best move.
Have you got 1 or 2 transfers?
I've only got 1, so I'd have to be a hit.
Okay, so because I'm thinking, obviously, Kane down, Son in for a midfielder, even Stevens, but maybe not even Stevens. You probably wouldn't be happy to take a -4 for that.
I'm looking at. I mean, what I can do is I can do Dale Stevens to Son, and I could do Kane to a fodder striker.
Oh, would it have to be? I was hoping you might be able to squeeze like a DCL in there.
I can get to 6 million. If I took
What's
another
Watkins?
hit,
6.2, 6.1?
Don't know. 6.1, I think.
6. I'm going to be 0.1 short for that one, which would be nice. But then I'm still left with Bamford, who I don't really want. So I think.
Do you consider losing Soucek?
I think what I would probably do. No. maybe actually. Maybe.
I'm thinking about it. I think I'd rather have Saka. But then I bent Soucek for all his points, so what do I know?
I don't want to bore the listeners and the viewers with me looking at my team behind the scenes, thinking, oh, can I get there? And basically, I've got a decision to make. Lots of fantasy football managers have. And tomorrow, listen out for Andy and Neil's team talk for more on what's going to be happening with Harry Kane there. Let's move on to you, Ted. You got Martinez in goal, Cancelo, Chilwell, Luke Dean, Gundogan, Fernandes, Son captain, Salah, Rodriguez, Antonio and Calvert-Lewin. And on your bench you got McCarthy, Adams, Dallas and Kufau. You've already taken a -8. You don't have to worry about Kane. Happy days.
I'm very, very relieved, and I really like the look of that team on paper. Relieved by the fact that I didn't make an early transfer just because of the price rise to Harry Kane to do Bamford to Kane for free last night. And that's the risk about early transfers, isn't it? That you're always going to suffer potential injury issues if they're playing. So I've taken a -8 for Everton. On paper, Newcastle at home is an excellent fixture, so I really need them to come through to make that -8 worth it. They have a couple of good fixtures after that, but on paper it looks great. I might change the captaincy from Son. Not 100%. The injury to Kane makes Son less of a good option because most of Son's goals have come through Kane assists. So I might move it back to Salah, or I might even stretch the boat out and captain Calvert-Lewin, but it's probably a bridge too far, potentially.
Okay, so decisions made. So hopefully no one else gets injured and you're all set. Now, Seb, you got Martinez in goal. Got a 4-4-2 with Robertson, Cancelo, Stones, and Eric Dyer. Salah, Fernandes, Saka, Son captain, so you haven't got that problem to worry about. Antonio Watkins up front. And then on your bench, you got Bamford, Kilman, Soucek, and Sanchez. So strong bench. But are you not making any move, I guess?
Bamford is on the bench comfortably, so maybe he stays there. I like the idea of DCL. I like the idea of Dyer to Dean, but maybe not this week. I'm not sure. Saka against Man United doesn't excite me that much, but then Liverpool, Soucek. I'm probably looking at getting either Gundogan, DCL, or Luka Dean, and we'll see if that takes me a hit or what have you, but I'm probably not stretching outside of that pool. And then captain on Son at the moment. I need to go back and look at Ted's graphics to see the big chances Brighton concede. Like you say, without Kane, it's less attractive, but it's probably him or Salah in my team.
Yeah, in my head, Spurs without Kane, someone steps up and it's been Son recently, I think, but we haven't been without Kane for a while. So it's something I would look at as well. And I may have to do without Son.
We possibly haven't had a Kane injury or a significant injury since we've had this ridiculous Kane and Son partnership. Like, I know they've played well together through their whole career, but since it's been this outrageous assisting to goals between the two of them, I don't think we've had a Kane injury. So we possibly haven't seen how that would change Son's play.
Okay, so we've got some decisions to make, but we, as usual, with a video podcast, the content changes because of injuries. At least this time, Kane had the good grace to get injured during the show rather than about 2 hours after we've just recorded it. So at least we've got that. I am in the mood for a new captain next week. Ted was in the mood for some toffees and he's gone for it, and Seb is still a bit undecided, but I think he's got a great team and he's got bench choices there. He's got options. But in the meantime, good luck everyone with your game week. I've had a better game week than I thought I would, but still not great, but it'll do. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from me.
Yeah, say goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye all.